Welcome to the Prison Professors Podcast. We serve people who face challenges with prosecution, sentencing, and prison. My co-founders are Shon Hopwood and Paperny. My name is Michael Santos. We create digital content and our team offers individual consulting services. We also assist agencies that want to improve outcomes. To learn how we can help you, text the word PrisonPro to 44222. Again, text PrisonPro to 44222 and get our free brochure. You can also visit us at prisonprofessors.com or contact Justin at 818-424-2220. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Send confirmation that you have rated our Prison Professors podcast and leave us a review, and we'll send you a free digital book. We'll work hard to earn 5 stars. Stay tuned for a 20 to 30-minute episode with Prison Professors. I am Michael Santos with Prison Professors. Along with my partners, Shon Hopwood and Paperny, we are glad to provide more information about how to prepare for the prison journey. Earlier episodes have given extensive biographical information on each of us. But complete your own due diligence. You will see why we are exceptionally well qualified to help anyone who is going into the system. More importantly, we are well qualified to help people who want to get out of the prison system successfully at the soonest possible time. Each of us succeeded after prison because we understood how to make good decisions as we worked our way through the journey. Always remember, the right decision at the wrong time is the wrong decision. This episode is part of our series that we're calling How to Prepare for Prison. In the previous episode in this series, we explained a bit about the process. As Dr. Steve Covey advised in his best-selling book, it is always best to seek to understand before we seek to be understood. In this segment of the Prison Professors podcast, we're going to discuss the importance of understanding stakeholders in the criminal justice system. Now, we're going to start with the federal prison hierarchy. But to succeed in the federal prison system, it is crucial to understand how the system operates. Now, our partner, Shon Hopwood, tells a great story that might help us illustrate the point. When Shon began serving his sentence for armed bank robbery, he wanted out. Many people in prison want out. But while Shon was in prison, he read a case that highlighted a favorable decision from the Supreme Court. And he thought that the legal ruling might apply to him. So Shon, not knowing really what he was doing, set out to write a motion, and he filed his motion in a court that he thought could potentially grant him relief. But the judge refused to accept Shon's motion. Instead, the judge offered advice. He suggested that if Shon wanted to get relief in court, it would behoove him to file his motion in the appropriate court that would have jurisdiction on his case. Now, obviously, Shon went on to master the judicial system. As Steve Kroft of 60 Minutes said during a 60-minute episode, while Shon was serving his sentence, he became the most successful jailhouse lawyer in history. The legal briefs that he wrote for other prisoners resulted in victories in district courts, circuit courts, and the United States Supreme Court. Shon's legal victories changed laws that resulted in liberty for many people in federal prison. But if Shon did not learn how to master federal prison first, he would not have succeeded in mastering the federal judiciary, nor could he have ever become a skilled jailhouse lawyer. We must take first steps first. And for people going into the prison system, it is essential to understand how the Bureau of Prisons operates. Because it's fundamentally different to succeed in prison, to live in prison, than it is to succeed outside. You got to understand the system before you can put a pathway in place or architect a strategy that is going to lead you from where you are to the success that you want to become. So let's start by understanding, what part of government is the Bureau of Prisons a part of. Like the federal courts, the Federal Bureau of Prisons is a massive bureaucracy. Many years have passed since some of our readers took a class in civics or even understand what bureaucracy is. But as a quick reminder, our nation has 3 bodies of government. They include the following branches: the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the executive branch. Our elected members of Congress make up the legislative branch of government. They include representatives from each of the 500 plus districts in the United States, and they include the 2 senators that represent each state. Those members vote on legislation in both the Senate and the House of Representatives. Once they are in agreement, the legislative bills go to the president, and if the president signs the legislative bills, they become laws. Now, in our country, we have more than 90 federal judicial districts. For example, in California, where I live along with my partner Justin, there are 4 separate federal judicial districts. They include the Northern District Court, the Central District Court, the Southern District Court, and the Eastern District Court. Each of those district courts is part of a circuit. We separate those circuits by geographical region. For example, California is in the Ninth Judicial Circuit. New York is in the Second Judicial Circuit. We also have the United States Supreme Court that presides over all of the circuits and the district courts. In all of those courts, we have more than 1,000 federal judges that preside over the various courts. Each of the judges strives to ensure that people receive due process, meaning the judges strive to apply fairness in the courts for all. And they must apply the laws as Congress wanted those laws to be applied. Now, then there's the executive branch of government, which oversees the many different applications of government. Our president appoints people who oversee the different departments. For our purposes, we know that the Attorney General of the United States oversees the Department of Justice, and the Attorney General of the United States oversees the Director of the Bureau of Prisons. For that reason, we must understand how the hierarchy operates. Because when there's challenges, we need to know where to go to resolve our challenges. And the more you learn before you go into the system, the more successful you become in being able to navigate that system. Navigate it in a manner that allows you to succeed. So if you want to be different, if you want to go through this prison system differently from the way that most people go through it, learn. Learn about politics and learn how it affects the life of every prisoner. It may not matter when you're not in prison, but once you become a part of this system, the more you understand about the system, the more effective you become at being able to navigate that system. Now, earlier, I encouraged all listeners to complete their own due diligence. Learn about my partners and me. That way, you can assess the veracity of our claim to have mastered our time in federal prison. It takes a lot of discipline to grow in prison. In my case, I went through 26 years, and I served time in prisons of every security level. But regardless of where I was, I mastered that system, and that's what I want to teach other people how to do. Now, by the time that I met our co-founder, Justin Paperny, in the Taft Federal Prison Camp, our country was going through a historic election. The economy was in tatters, sliding into the worst recession in recent memory. Unemployment was on the rise. And Justin, I remember him asking me why I followed the political races so closely. Well, as a prisoner, I explained, we must live with decisions that come down from the top. The president's perspective on governing will influence the policies that he wants to set. And as a prisoner, we must live with those policies. If the president believes that people have a capacity to change, the president will appoint an attorney general that shares that liberal viewpoint. On the other hand, if the president believes that we need to preserve the systems that are in place, then the president will appoint an attorney general that shares such a conservative viewpoint. Policy shifts in prison will reflect the perceptions of both the president and the attorney general. Always remember that when you're in the system, the decisions come from the top. To illustrate, let's provide 2 recent examples of such change. Okay? Let's start with the Second Chance Act of 2008. That act provided prison administrators with new discretion regarding halfway house placement. Prior to the Second Chance Act, leaders in the Bureau of Prisons could authorize prisoners to serve the final 6 months of their sentences in a halfway house. After the Second Chance Act, leaders in the Bureau of Prisons could authorize prisoners to serve the final 12 months of their sentences in a halfway house. Now, obviously, from a prisoner's perspective, 12 months in a halfway house would be better than 6 months in a halfway house. But if it was up to the Bureau of Prisons, the Bureau of Prisons has the discretion on how they are going to apply the law. They're the executive branch of government. So when the United States Congress passed the Second Chance Act, they expected the people in the Bureau of Prisons to apply the law as they so intended, meaning some people would get 12 months, potential in a halfway house. But leadership in the Bureau of Prisons has discretion to do whatever they want. When President Obama was in office, the Attorney General was Eric Holder. Under that administration, people in prison could have some influence on how much halfway house time they could receive. As a master of federal prisons, I succeeded in putting myself on a pathway to get the full 12 months of halfway house placement. Similarly, as a master in the federal prison system, Justin succeeded in getting the maximum halfway house placement that was available to him. That's what happens when you know how to work your way through the system. But in 2017, President Donald Trump appointed Jeff Sessions to serve as the Attorney General. Now, both President Trump and Attorney General Sessions have a different perspective than the previous administration. President Trump and AG Sessions have a conservative perspective, meaning that they believe that people should serve the maximum amount of time in federal prison. And the 2017 administration cut funding to all halfway houses. As a master of federal prison, you should know how are you going to cope with such change. To prevail on a maximum halfway house time request or any matter pertaining to federal prison professors urges people to understand. Pursue a strategy that will get you the best possible outcome. And you have to realize that you're going to choose that strategy in accordance with the political philosophy of the administration that's in power. The strategy may result in success during a conservative administration, may differ significantly from the strategy that could result in success in a liberal administration. To master federal prison quickly, we make sure that you understand the political philosophy on both a macro level and a micro level, because it's going to determine the course of action that you take. So let's start with who is leading the Bureau of Prisons. That is the director of the Bureau of Prisons. Now, the Bureau of Prisons, again, it's a massive organization. It employs more than 40,000 staff members, and they serve in 6 different regions. Those regions include federal prisons in most states, halfway houses in all states, regional offices, training centers, and a headquarters in Washington, D.C. The director of the Bureau of Prisons presides over the entire bureaucracy. He reports to the Attorney General of the United States. Now, for the nearly 200,000 people that are in federal prison, it is important to understand the different roles in the Bureau of Prisons. So what is the role of the director? Well, the director must make sure that the prison system is operating in accordance with the wishes of the Attorney General. And the Attorney General wants the director to operate the Bureau of Prisons in accordance with the political philosophy of the president. So the director is not going to express concern for individual prisoner issues. Rather, the director focuses on systemic policies. When prisoners attempt to seek relief from the director, the prisoner reveals a lack of understanding and just a total amateurish understanding of how the system operates. It doesn't get him any victories. Masters understand the system, and they learn how to succeed given the limitations of the system itself. Unless a prisoner wants to advocate for systemic change, it just doesn't make sense for him to advance arguments at the highest level of the Bureau of Prisons. There may come a time for that. My partner Shon and I frequently work on policy matters, trying to influence policies that influence systemic change for tens of thousands of people. In fact, that's part of our Prison Professors podcast. Let people know how it operates, because doing so can bring change. But if you try to bring change at the wrong level, you're kind of like Shon was doing, putting a motion before a court that doesn't have the jurisdiction to change anything. In fact, when you go to seek relief at the highest levels of the Bureau of Prisons, you can bring further problems on yourself. Leaders know that the right decision at the wrong time is the wrong decision. Remember that. And although people in prison may see many injustices on a systemic level, as masters, we should always have a very clear perspective. How are we defining success? What battles are we striving to win? What price are we willing to pay in pursuit of success over the battles that we choose? By focusing on victory as we define victory, we know where to concentrate our energy. It rarely works in our interest to seek relief from the highest levels of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. To oversee the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the director relies upon a large team. And that team includes a deputy director, several acting directors, several regional directors. It would be highly unusual for any of those directors to make any decision regarding any individual in prison. Rather, the directors rely upon their subordinates, and we should expect the subordinates to make decisions in accordance with the political philosophies of the people in power. Directors set policies and they oversee budgets. Subordinates carry out those policies. And to the extent you understand those subordinates, then you can start crafting a strategy that's going to lead to success as you define success. So let's have a federal prison overview. We know that the Bureau of Prisons is a massive bureaucracy, holds 200,000 people, employs 40,000 people. We know that it includes many different divisions. People who want to master federal prisons should broaden their understanding of how each of those divisions operates. The more people understand, the more likely they become to get the best trajectory going for them. Masters seek to understand more so that they can influence more. Although a later chapter or a later episode, I'm going to discuss custody and classification levels in detail, we can provide a brief overview here. The Bureau of Prisons categorizes people in accordance with security levels. Consider the following: the ADX. Now, this designation refers to an administrative maximum United States penitentiary. It is the highest level of security. Most people who serve time in an ADX start in a lower security prison. But they make decisions in prison that result in new criminal charges and disciplinary problems. So when a team member or a staff member of the Bureau of Prisons identifies people in prison as being sufficiently disruptive or having too much power over others, they can send them to an ADX penitentiary. Not fun. SMU. What does that mean? Well, that designation refers to a special management unit. And like the ADX, the SMU is a highly restrictive prison. Staff members may send people to an SMU when they want to restrict their communications. Although most people who are in an SMU have violent histories, it is important to remember the adage that the pen is mightier than the sword. If staff members consider a prisoner to be a prolific writer, as Michael Santos was, and the prisoner writes content that staff members consider inflammatory, as Michael Santos did, they may confine the person to an SMU. But if you are a master of the system, as Michael Santos was, you can overcome that, and you can publish from prison, and you can become successful from prison, and you can influence tens of thousands of people from prison. You see, my friends, at Prison Professors, we show people how to succeed. We don't talk about it, we've done it, and we always say we never ask anyone to do anything that we didn't do and that we're not doing today. Master the system by understanding how it operates. So besides the SMU, then you have the more normal prison categorization systems. And that would be USP would be next. This designation refers to a United States penitentiary. In the broader community, people consider the word penitentiary as being synonymous with prison. But in the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the word penitentiary has a different meaning and connotation. It means high security. People going to a USP live in restrictive conditions. Staff members consider USPs to be more volatile. They govern USPs in response to population levels that include higher percentages of people who have violent, volatile, and disruptive histories. So you don't want to go there if you don't have to. I was in a USP for about 7 years, maybe 8 years. I don't remember the beginning of my sentence. I didn't have any problems there. And if you know how to master environments, you can survive anywhere. But my recommendation is try to get out of the USP if you can. And the next level is FCI. This designation refers to a federal correctional institution. The FCI includes both medium security and low security prisons. And of course, during my journey, I was in both FCI medium security prisons and FCI low security prisons. The next is called an FSL. Now, this designation refers to a federal satellite low security prison. The people in an FSL have the custody scoring of people in a camp, but they have some issue that prevents them from going to a camp. For example, they may have a detainer of some type, or they may have longer than 10 years to serve. So the FSL is kind of like a camp with the people that are in there. They just can't go there for some reason or other. Maybe they're of German descent or, from Africa or something, and they've got a detainer. But otherwise, they'd be in a camp. So FSLs, just serving a long time, but it's still a secure prison. Now, an SCP is the designation that refers to a satellite prison camp. The camp is generally adjacent to a secure prison, and the inmates in the camp provide labor that keeps the prison operating. An FPC is what refers to a federal prison camp. Those are frequently standalone camps, meaning it's not tied to another prison, as with the SCP. So, give you some perspective here. The camp in Maxwell, Alabama, known as Montgomery, is an FPC because there's no other prison around it. It's just the camp in Montgomery. An SCP might be, the last camp I was at in Atwater, California, was an SCP, adjacent to the USP in Atwater. So an FCC, this designation refers to a federal correctional complex. A complex will have several prisons of different security levels in a single location. People in one prison do not mix with people in another prison, but they're all in the same geographical location. For example, in Florence, Colorado, I was there is an ADX, a Supermax prison, a USP, a high security penitentiary, an FCI, a medium security correctional institution, and an SCP, which is the camp that provides labor for most all of those other institutions. That is a federal correctional complex. An FDC, an MCC, or an MDC, those are different designations for special populations. These designations refer to detention centers, where people in detention centers ordinarily are awaiting outcomes of a judicial proceeding. That's a federal detention center, a metropolitan correctional center, or a metropolitan detention center. Although some people serve their entire term in detention centers, they generally, if they are assigned to work in a work cadre. They're providing labor and maintenance for the prison. They're not necessarily there. Most of the people are not necessarily there for that purpose. They're there just waiting to get designated to a typical prison. An FMC is the designation for a federal medical center. People who need medical attention may serve all or a portion of their time in an FMC. An FTC. Now, this designation refers to the Federal Transfer Center in Oklahoma. Prisoners may spend time in the FTC while they travel from one institution to another, or they may be going to court in one jurisdiction and they have to go through the FTC as marshals transfer them from one part of the country to another part of the country. Or, of course, people can serve time at FTC on the work cadre. Now, a CI, this designation refers to a privately operated federal prison. CO and RO, if you see those designations, that refers to the central office and the regional offices. And it's important to understand what people work there. In case that you have challenges in the Bureau of Prisons, you may need to move through the administrative remedy process. So mastering the federal prison system requires some knowledge of the different types of institutions, because the more we know about the Bureau of Prisons and the staff, the better we can position ourselves to get the best possible environment. Now, all secure institutions include the following staff members. The warden. The warden is the CEO of the institution. Wardens have an enormous amount of influence with regard to how the prison operates. And once a person gets into an institution, the warden will effectively have a lot of control over that person's life. Some wardens make themselves approachable. And to the extent that a person in prison positions himself well, he can have some influence on a warden's perception. I can tell you many examples where a warden has had influence over me and has been helpful to me. Now, as a prisoner, it's crucial to begin with a clear understanding of success. Exercise discretion when it comes to approaching a warden or anyone else. Lay the groundwork first before asking the warden to intervene on anything. Understand that the warden has enormous power with regard to every person in the prison. In the various books that prison professors have published, we describe how wardens influenced our success through the journey. Pay close attention to the extensive amounts of back work that we did, and also note that we were selective when we requested assistance. A master knows which battles to fight and which battles to just let go. An associate warden is the second tier in the executive staff of a prison. The associate wardens are part of the warden's executive staff. They oversee various departments within the prison. For example, there's the associate warden of programs who will oversee unit staff. The associate warden of operations will oversee facility management. And the population level of the prison will influence how many associate wardens are available. Department heads. Department heads oversee specific departments. For example, the unit manager oversees all case managers, and the unit manager reports directly to the associate warden of programs. So the unit manager will ask inmates to resolve matters directly with the case manager before you come to the department heads. So that's who the line staff is. The line staff includes case managers, cook supervisors, counselors, landscape foremen, maintenance leaders, and others who work in various departments. They report to their respective department heads. We can spend a little more time on case managers because they're pretty important to the prisoner. Case managers oversee all matters that pertain to a person's case. Once the judge sentences a person to the custody of the Attorney General, that person becomes an inmate as far as concerns the system. And case managers will have direct oversight over the inmate. The inmate will not have a lawyer. The inmate must learn how to advocate for himself effectively. Case managers will be a key person to influence. Although policies guide decisions, there is always some level of discretion. And a master knows how to influence staff members at the appropriate level in the Bureau of Prisons if the master wants to get the best possible outcome. Don't try to influence the director of the Bureau of Prisons because you're not going to get anywhere. If you can understand how to influence your case manager, you can really move the needle in advancing your progress. Now, counselors. Counselors in the Federal Bureau of Prisons do not offer the type of counseling that someone outside of prison would expect. Their tasks are more along the lines of approving jobs, approving visitor lists, and assigning jobs, and telephone lists and things like that. So it's best to understand the limited role that counselors are going to play in prison. That way you can spare yourself the disappointment that comes from expecting too much. You got to learn how to take care of yourself in prison. Don't expect anyone to counsel you. Influence and manipulation. At Prison Professors, we discuss the long-term approach of influencing a positive outcome. That differs from short-sighted efforts to manipulate staff members. To influence does not mean to manipulate. For obvious reasons, staff members are extremely cynical. Every day, staff members in prison work with convicted felons, and many of those people have criminal mindsets. That is why staff members expect inmates to lie. They expect inmates to do or say anything that will ease their burden. Masters of the system don't whine or complain about this reality. Rather, they learn how to work within the system and how to succeed in spite of the challenges. Masters know that the Bureau of Prisons invests a considerable amount of resources in staff development and staff training. Part of that training teaches staff members how to be firm but fair. Now, the Bureau of Prisons wants to make sure the public is safe, the prisons are safe, and the staff members are safe. As such, it is extremely conservative. Training encourages staff members to rely upon policy when making decisions. And they train staff members to interpret those policies conservatively. For that reason, it is crucial for masters to understand all policies. By understanding the opportunity costs that come with every decision, masters can make better progress than those who flounder. If you want to master federal prison, work through all of the programs available through prisonprofessors.com. You will learn our strategies for making exceptional progress inside. And more importantly, you will learn how to succeed through prison and beyond. Now that's it for this episode of our series on how to master prisons. We encourage you to learn as much as you possibly can. If you want information on how we help, please text the number 44222 and type in the word Prison Pro. That's text Prison Pro to 44222, and we will send you a free brochure that talks about the different ways that we help people. And if you want to help us, we encourage you, subscribe to the Prison Professors podcast on iTunes. Please rate and review the show. That helps us get distribution. And if you send us a copy of your rating and review, we will send you a free copy of one of our digital books, any one that you choose. Just look at our website. We'll send you a free digital book. Just rate and review our show. And go to our public page on Facebook for Prison Professors. You will see how we are working to change the system, to bring more awareness to the system. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Prison Professors. We are here to improve the outcomes of America's prison system, and we hope that you connect with us. So share us with other people on your team. Come back tomorrow. We will be giving you another episode, and on our next episode, I think I am going to discuss custody and classification levels as part of our series, How to Master Prison. Again, text Prison Pro to 44222. I am Michael Santos with Prison Professors, and I thank you for listening.